we're in week 3 of red flags, respect, and relationships, all right? We're talking about the red flags in life, in relationships, in yourself, and things you should watch out things for that you should pay attention to because they're warning signs, all right? Let me ask you a quick question. What is something that you found very valuable growing up, okay? Think about that. While you're thinking about it, I'm going to tell you one of mine. When I was your age, I did not have this cool device called an iPhone or an iPod or an MP3 player. I had this guy, this Philips CD player, the personal CD player. It was this exact model. I Googled it and found the exact one that I used to walk around with. For frame of reference, I got another picture with the headphones that I would wear too, right? And so they were super cheap. I fell asleep many a nights on those headphones, waking up in the middle of the night with my ear really hurting from it, my ear getting scrunched by the headphones, between the headphones and the pillow. So then I would sleep drunk, take it off and throw it on my night table and roll over and fall back asleep in the middle of the night. I had so much music that I would listen to, but only 12 songs at a time. So I would have to swap the disc. They're called CDs, and they were really the thing back then. And so I listened to a lot of I'm nerdy, okay? I listened to some Star Wars soundtracks, right? I would fall asleep to that sometimes. I would listen to Jump 5. Anybody ever heard of Jump 5? You should go look it up. It'll change your life. Joy Williams, back in the day when she was Christian. Let's see. What else did I... Oh, DC Talk. DC Talk. I had that on the cassette tapes, and I got the digitally remastered CD as well. So that was fun. So I would carry this around everywhere. And literally when I'd go on a bike ride, I'd stuff it in a bag like that and ride around my bike in the neighborhood with that on. I would, on road trips, these were not studio headphones where it was sound canceling and nobody could hear what you were listening to. It was one of those that they were like mini speakers just aimed towards your ears so everybody else could still hear what you were listening to. I also would just, by the time I got when I was in high school, one of my cars didn't have a CD player or a headphone jack or anything. It was a really old car. But what I did have was a Bluetooth or FM transmitter, and I would plug that into the headphone jack and keep that between my seats in the front, and I would just swap out CDs and then play it through the FM transmitter. So this thing got a lot of usage all the way up through my high school years. It was very near and dear to me. It was very valuable to me. But do you know how valuable it is to me now? This much valuable now, right? I don't even know where it's at. I probably got rid of it years ago. I don't remember even when I got rid of it because it literally has no more value to me anymore because technology advanced. I got the next best thing, and I moved on with my life, right? The next thing I got was literally a USB MP3 player where had a little cap. You plug into the computer and put whatever songs you want on there. Yes. And then I would pull it out, and then it had a headphone jack, and I'd walk around, and it was tiny. It was the closest thing to an iPod. And then iPods came out. I got one of those. It was great, actually. So I kind of want to go back to the iPod sometimes. Just that the Nano. Do you adults remember the classic where it's the little turning wheel? Those things are retro now. They're awesome. Okay, so that was something that had a lot of value to me. So I'm going to show you some items. I want you to yell yes or no if you think they have value for you today. Okay. Here's the first one: a smartphone. Yes, value. Okay. Yeah, I like Carter's idea. Let's do the flag thing and say yes if this is you. You can just yell yes really loud if you want. How about this? Owner's manual. One person, yes? That's what the internet's for, right? Type in the model and then look up the manual. I do that, but yet I still keep all my manuals in a box at home. So I'm the worst of both worlds. How about pizza? Yeah, that is a relevant topic today. I'm sorry for making you hungry. How about your friends? Yeah? All right. Yay for stock photos. How about tax returns? Tax returns. That has lots of value, right? I guess it's valuable if you get a return. How about just hobbies in general, right? We got baseball, photography, they've got more modern headphones in that picture, okay? How about an office cubicle? Does that have a whole lot of value for you guys? How many of your parents work in an office? Okay, so they can buy you pizza because of that. So just remember that, all right? How about a tablet? Anybody got a tablet? Yeah? These things are valuable. I remember, actually, I kid you not, I was like a sophomore in high school maybe, when the very first iPad 1 came out, and it was like this big. I just lost my shoe. The bad thing about slippers is they have no grip or anything, so I'm probably just going to walk out of them at some point. But I remember when the very first iPad came out, and I remember seeing some kid on their stomach on the church seats, just with their whole face lit up by it, and they were scrolling on an iPad. And I remember thinking, that's so dumb. You have a phone. Why do you need an iPad? That's ridiculous. Come on, Apple. Stop making money grabs. And now everybody has one, and they're actually really cool, and I really like it, and I use mine all the time. So here's the thing. Some of those things have value for us. Some things just don't. Do you guys remember what was valuable to you in elementary school? Yeah? What was valuable in elementary school that probably is not valuable now? The playground? I'm sorry, recess doesn't exist. Your diary, what'd you say? Recess, yes. Oh, the Geopets? Yes.
Beyblades.
What?
Beyblades.
I don't think I know.
Beyblades?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, Pokemon cards, yeah. I played that a lot in first grade. And then our school banned it because it was I don't know why. But so those things had value for you then, but they probably don't anymore, right? I used to keep a little a box chest thing with a little key, and I would put valuables in it. In fact, I've had it since elementary school. I have it now. It's a storage container for me at my house where I have old sentimental stuff that I just throw in there that I never look at, and I don't really even know what's in there anymore. I think I have a paper mache dog that I made in art class in 6th grade. I don't remember. But there's things that we kind of have a chest for that whether it's mentally or a figurative chest that you just maybe is the trash can for you. It was valuable for you at one time, but it's just not anymore. And so as you grow, things if they don't have a purpose anymore, if they don't serve a purpose, then they're just not as valuable anymore, right? And here's the thing, and this is why I bring this up for this series, is because sometimes we treat people the same way, right? People are valuable to us if they do something for us. But if they don't do anything for us, then they cease to have value, and then that affects the way that we treat them. We treat people often if there's something that again adds value to our lives, then we're friendly and we're nice to them and we are intentional with them. But if they don't bring any value or we don't see the benefit of having them in our lives, then we just ignore them. We pretend they don't exist. Oftentimes, we treat people the same way we treat our old valuables. Some of us might not even realize we're doing this, and then now we've got to rethink, am I doing that to anybody, right? Some of you, it's not intentional. It's a thing that happens, right? Some of us, maybe we're tempted to do this by the way that we talk about people, either to their face or behind their back. We treat them as if they don't have any value, or we don't give them any value because we don't see the benefit of a friendship with them, right? And this is especially important when it comes to this topic of relationships, dating, and sexual integrity, because if we treat people like they aren't valuable to us, then we begin to treat them like objects, right, instead of people. And this is really the crux of what we're talking about in today's message, right? It's perfectly okay when someone stands out and catches your attention, but the minute you start degrading them by your comments or by the way you treat them, you've shifted in from valuing somebody to treating them like an object, right? And so I want to contrast this idea of treating people like objects versus treating people with honor, like they matter, beyond the value that they can give to you personally. Because this is something that our culture really gets messed up all the time. We see it displayed in our movies, in our music, and all the things. Even on social media, especially on social media, value is assigned by likes and shares. And so if we're not careful, see, this is something that's much harder for you than it is for me, and I'll give you that. When I was your age, social media didn't exist. So I didn't have to constantly compare or assign my worth to anything I posted online. The internet was separate. You guys have been raised with the internet, right? You've been raised with social media. Like it's just, you can't imagine a time where that didn't exist because of your age. And so oftentimes it's difficult for younger people to dissociate their value and their worth from their online presence. So what you post, your online lives, in other words, are like for us, for my age, our online lives are kind of an extension of real life. But for a lot of kids your age, real life is almost like an extension of your online world. Some of you aren't there yet because you don't have social media, and that's great. But for others of you who have grown up with it or had it, then that's a real tension point. It can be easy to assign worth in our lives to the wrong things. And so sometimes we treat people like objects when we ask them to send pictures to us that maybe they're not comfortable about, and it's not honoring to them, but for us, it's what we want. See, when we treat people like objects, what that means is we think about ourselves and our own needs before the needs of other people, before the intrinsic value and worth that other people have. And so, again, we wind up treating them like objects rather than people, right? And deep down, all of us want to be valued. We want to be known. We want to be loved. We want to be valued. We want to know that we have worth, that people care about us, and that people want us in their lives. We want to be valued. We want respect in a relationship, and not getting that should feel like a red flag. Some of you, you'll settle when you shouldn't. It should be a red flag when you're not given the respect that you deserve. So you have to know your worth to know how you deserve to be treated. And many of us, especially with the values in our culture today, we miss this. And it's really easy to miss this. It's easy to feel left out, to feel down on yourself. So I think it's important here to remind you that God made each and every one of us. And because of that, we're valuable. God didn't have to make us. He didn't have to make us in his own image. He didn't have to do any of those things, but he does because he wants a relationship with us. By the very fact that God created us, it means that we have value. We have purpose. We were here for something. So all of us want to be valued, and all of us do have value because of God. Because he made us, we have value. So, and thankfully, Jesus proved just how valuable we were, because even when we messed up, even when we couldn't make things right with God, he still came down and died on a cross for our sins, so that our sin wouldn't have to keep us from God. So Jesus showed and proved just how valuable we were. And so one of the things you have to recognize is during Jesus' ministry, it wasn't just, we often talk about Jesus like the great person he was, because obviously he was, but a lot of people didn't like him. Namely, the religious leaders at the time. They couldn't stand Jesus. They hated him. In fact, they thought it was their job to tell people what they were worth based on the Old Testament, their scriptures, right? And Jesus had a different metric for engaging with people, for assigning value to people. And so because of this, people flocked towards Jesus. He was speaking in a new way to the people. And the religious leaders didn't like it, because it meant that he was getting more attention than them, and he was undermining their authority. And they didn't like this. They liked being in charge. And so they're always trying to trip him up and catch him saying the wrong thing so that they can get him in trouble. And so this is one of those conversations where one of them is asking Jesus, like, hey, maybe, because it's a kind of a trick question, right? They're trying to trip him up publicly to make a fool out of him so that they can get some of their own honor back. And so he asked Jesus, all right, what is the most important commandment that God has for us? And Jesus responds with this. He says, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No commandment is greater than these. And so right there, he answers this perfectly, because they're expecting Jesus to just give out one of the commandments from the Old Testament. There were like over 600 of them. And if Jesus called out any of them specifically, they could be like, aha, well, you're forgetting about this one. But he didn't play that game. He said, basically, all those commandments that you're wanting me to choose from, they can all be summed up by this. Love God and love others. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And so, if you go to visit main service at some point today, Josh will talk about what loving your neighbor means. But that's a different message altogether today. He says, no commandment is greater than this, to love God and love others. And essentially, this just means God cares about how we value ourselves and others. Right? We can't love other people very well if we don't love ourselves, in the sense that we know that we have value. We won't know where the boundaries or where the red flag should be if we don't understand the amount of respect that we are due because of our value. And if we don't understand that, then it's going to be really easy to not understand how much other people are valuable to God as well. There's a song that came out when I was maybe a little bit older than you by a Christian artist named Brandon Heath. Have you heard of Brandon Heath? He's got a song. It was like his biggest song at the time. It's probably still his biggest song. But it's called Give Me Your Eyes. And it's all about like saying, God, give me your eyes for the brokenhearted. Give me your eyes to see the world how you see. And Jesus tells us the secret of how to see the world through his eyes. To see it by loving others as we love ourselves. And by loving God first and foremost. If we can do those two things, that will shape our perspective to see others in a way that supersedes our own desires. Because when we're run by our own selfish desires, our own wants, then that will often take priority over the way we care about other people. And so we have to understand this. We have to understand that God cares about how we value ourselves and others. Because if we don't value ourselves or others, this is when wars are started. This is when people are mistreated. This is when abuse happens. This is when people are taken advantage of. And so God cares very deeply about how we value ourselves and value those around us in our lives. If we talk down at people, make them feel bad about themselves, maybe it's because we don't understand how much worth we have. And we're trying to make ourselves feel better because we have to prove our worth. And sometimes the only way we know how to prove our worth is by putting other people down. See, God cares about how you value yourselves and others because he doesn't want you to fall into that false idea. You don't have to put other people down in order to prove your own worth. See, God wants you to care about how you value yourself and others because he wants you to have whole and fulfilling relationships that are a blessing to you and the other people. And you can't do that if you don't value yourself and you don't value them. This is really important, this topic, because we get this wrong a lot in our culture. And not enough people speak into your life, probably, at your school or online, to be able to tell you the truth that God revealed years and years and years ago in his word. And that is, you have intrinsic value. And so does your neighbor. That seems like a simple idea. But when we truly start to understand it and live as if that's true, it can't help but transform our relationships. Because they stop being about us and they start being about them. When our relationships are all about me, you don't like friends like that. You don't like hanging out with people that's all about themselves, right? You like hanging out with people that ask you questions about your life, that make you feel good about yourself, that encourage you, that build you up. And you owe it to others to do the same, right? This is a big deal for our relationships. If we want to avoid becoming a walking red flag ourselves, we have to understand this concept, right? You handle an object or a thing, but you love and value and respect a person, right? That's the difference between treating people like an object versus a person. We handle things that bring value to us. We handle objects. We handle, the Walkman with the CD player. We handle the things that are just objects to us. But for things that we love, we respect, and that have value, we treat them different. They have a different place in our lives. And this starts with practicing in a dating relationship. This is with what starts with practicing sexual integrity, which, as we talked about the last couple of weeks, is choosing to respond to the sexual things that we feel, think, and desire in a way that respects ourselves, others, and God. This verse that we've talked about today really sums up how to do this well. If we want to live with sexual integrity, then we have to love God first. Because if we don't love God first, then we won't know how to love anybody else, including ourselves. We have to love God, and we have to love others. By understanding the infinite amount of value that God has assigned to each and every one of us. So what can we do to treat ourselves and others with value and respect? One, let's talk about the red flags. Do you believe that we all have value to God, others, and ourselves? If you don't believe that simple truth, you won't be able to do this. And it should be a red flag. It should be a red flag. If a lot of people talk about, and I'm surprised after all these years how many times I still hear it, even from high schoolers. I'll talk to a student, they're dating somebody, and I'll be like, well, tell me about them. What do you like about them? And they'll be talking, and sometimes it's a side comment, like they didn't even really think about it. They're like, and I've been trying to get them to come to church. They're not really Christian. And I'm thinking, well, then why are you dating them? Right? This goes to this. If you believe that we all have value, and we all, you can go back to that first slide real quick. If you believe that we all have value, and we all deserve respect from one another, but we all have value to God and others and ourselves, this is the foundation of every relationship. And if you're going to date somebody, or potentially, the Bible calls it yoke yourself, right? We talked about this several weeks ago in a different series. But if we live our lives in step with somebody who does not share the same values as us, it's only going to fracture the relationship, and it will bring you down more than anything else, right? You have to notice the red flags. You have to notice if somebody doesn't believe that we have value by God, then they aren't going to value the same things in life as you. And it's much easier for somebody to bring you down in your faith than it is for you to bring someone up. So you should be friends with non-Christians because they need the love and hope of Jesus. But for the people that are closest to you in your life, the people that you want to date, that you want them to be your boyfriend or girlfriend, those are people that need to be on the same trajectory as you in life. They need to love Jesus more than they love you, because if they don't, you will not get treated with respect the same way. And the relationship will crash and burn eventually. I even know people, you know people too. Growing up, I had a friend, he was a close friend of mine. His mom was a Christian, his dad wasn't. And there was constant tension in their house. Mom dragged them to church, dad would never come, didn't want anything to do with it. Right? Mom tried to instill these values. Hey, we're going to live this way, and dad wouldn't enforce them. And so dad would encourage them to do other things, to live life in a different way. And constantly mom and dad were fighting about it. You can't teach them to do that, right? You have to find somebody who loves Jesus more than they love you and not take offense to it. Otherwise, it won't work. It's a red flag. Secondly, respect, right? What would it look like to treat yourself and others in a way that honors God? Right, some of you, this is super easy, and you know where you're falling short. Some of you, you don't even realize you're not respecting the people around you by your words and your actions. So you need to take a closer look at this. Is this how Jesus would treat the person? There was a bracelet back in the 90s called WWJD, which stood for what? What would Jesus do? right? The idea just being like, hey, when we look in Scripture and we see how Jesus responded to situations, how he loved people, think about those things in the way that you treat other people today. Because that's how you love your neighbor. Just follow Jesus' example. And so you got to learn that kind of respect. What would it look like to treat others and yourself in a way that honors God? Lastly, when it comes to your relationships, who can you talk to for help? Right? Your relationship with somebody, if you start a dating relationship or a romantic relationship with somebody, that is something that you're going to have to work out with the other person. But you should never have a relationship with somebody that's that close to you and not be having more influence and more bringing other people into that relationship, I should say. You should bring older and wiser people to speak wisdom into your life to help you manage your relationships, because we all have blind spots. We all have things that we don't want to hear, but we need to hear. And if you don't invite other people that you can trust into your relationships to speak into those moments, you will go down paths of dysfunction, and you will reach a point where you don't know how to get past conflict, where you don't know how to get past the things that you don't understand. You have to bring other people into your relationships. We were meant to live in community, not in isolation. That includes your romantic relationships. When you are in a relationship with somebody, you should not have that relationship in isolation. You should not be exclusive to the point where you've neglected all your friends, you've neglected any wisdom from anybody else in your life. Those are good things. And the temptation is to be like, well, this is my relationship. People don't understand. But the reality is people could understand if you would communicate and bring other people into it, right? So that's a little bit of a layered topic, a little bit of a complicated idea. But I think we all understand when it comes to our own individual lives, that's why we have small groups. We need people in our lives to encourage us, to build us up, to lovingly rebuke us when necessary. And to do that using God's word. The same is true in a romantic relationship. You need people outside that relationship who will do all those same things for you as well. Because every romantic relationship should be working towards something bigger than just having the label of a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Right? They're not just somebody to make you feel less incomplete. They're not just somebody to make you feel more mature. They're not just somebody that you're dating for fun. You should date with a bigger purpose, with an end goal in mind. If you don't see yourself ever getting married to the person you're dating, why are you dating them? And I'm always surprised how many people are like, oh, well, I haven't really thought about what life would look like if I married this person. And I say, well, why are you with them? Right? That should inform the decisions that you make when it comes to dating. And if we're going to see somebody as a potential spouse, then that means we're going to have high standards. Good standards. Standards that we won't just let go because we're dating for fun. So I would encourage you guys, as you grow and you develop and you start to mature and you start to have more of these more serious relationships as you get older, I want you to know now, before many of you have even started on this path, to go into it with the right reasons. If somebody isn't good for you long term, then you shouldn't be giving them that attention or trying to develop that kind of relationship with them in the short term. So that sounds like a mean thing to say, but that's the kind of wisdom that I want you guys to have, so that you can see those red flags before you ever enter into a relationship that starts to get deeper than maybe you're ready for, or where you get more than you bargained in a negative way. So what's one way that you can show value to somebody else? What's one way that you can show other people that they are valuable to you and to God? I'm going to pray. I want you guys to think about that, and you'll go to your groups, and then we'll be done for the week.